So this is just a quick little aside. I don't have much to say about it because again, it's like really straightforward. You know, it's kind of open and shut. I've said a lot of stuff about the future of trans people in the United States and what Republicans want to do to trans people. Texas Attorney General sought data on gender changes to state IDs. Ken Paxton requested the Public Safety Department for the numbers, but was never given it due to accuracy problems. The office of Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, for those of you who don't know, state attorney general means you have a very big dick, politically speaking. This summer sought data on how many people had changed the gender info on their driver's licenses, according to a newspaper report published on Wednesday that civil rights attorneys described as worrying. Paxton is under indictment? Yes. The Washington Post reported that public records obtained by the newspaper do not indicate why Paxton's office made the request to the Texas Department of Public Safety. The head of the driver's license division told colleagues in June to compile the total number of changes from male to female and female to male for the last 24 months. A DPS spokesperson told the Post no data was ultimately handed over because it could not be accurately accurately produced. Cool. The DPS found over 16,000 gender changes over the past 2 years, but officials said a manual search would have been required to determine the reason for each one. According to records obtained by the Post, DPS staff members repeatedly referred to the request as coming from the Attorney General's office as they discussed attempting to narrow the data to include only licenses that have been altered to reflect a court-ordered change in somebody's gender. A verbal request was received, DPS spokesman Travis Considine told the Post. Ultimately, our team advised the Attorney General's office the data requested neither exists nor could be accurately produced. Thus, no data of any kind was provided. Brian Klosterbar, an attorney at the ACLU of Texas, said this request of info was highly unusual and a violation of privacy. We suspect this kind of data inquiry is an attempt to create info to further restrict and curtail the rights of transgender people living in Texas, Klosterbar told the Associated Press. Nice. Based protective incompetence, though? Yes, this is a fantastic bit of protective incompetence here, not having a digitized and extremely, malleable registry on this information does, in fact, help our cause here. How do you get at this exactly? Look, I'm not saying people should stay in the closet if they live in red states. I'm genuinely not saying that. And I'm not saying this in a actually I'm saying that kind of way. I'm genuinely not saying that. I am saying, however, as we move forward, depending on how far things go when it comes to the persecution of queer people by Republicans federally and at a state level, generally speaking, the first people to be targeted are ones who have like a legal registry identifying them in the group that is being targeted. Obviously, in this case, even if the data wasn't procured specifically, that would be like people who have had court orders to allow for the change of their gender on their license. It's just something worth keeping in mind, Now, don't get me wrong. Texas AG Ken Paxton would 100% be pulling the switch on the gas chamber on you guys, given the chance. That guy is a fucking lunatic. Absolutely insane piece of shit monster human being. Legit, I don't have that much to say on it, in large part because it is it's just so straightforward, right? One reason the Holocaust was worse in Holland compared to France was that France had bad record keeping and didn't have the addresses of all the Jews in the country while Holland did. God damn. Yeah, well, that'll do it, I guess. This is one of the reasons why in England, their census is no longer keeping track of like some types of ethnicity, and I think there's some validity to that. Some census data is really important to gather, but the type of data that you get, the way in which you get it, the specificity of that data make a pretty huge difference in the case of any, long-term bad stuff. Vaush, normie political subs on Reddit were starting to use the G word in reaction to the story. I assume you mean genocide and not gay. It is pretty gay, but it's also genocidal. In France, the data doesn't include ethnicity today. Well, that's nice. Genocide is very gay. Yeah. AG can't pull all court orders, only cases relevant to active criminal cases. Well, I imagine that's why they made the request to the Department of Public Safety, who probably has a different, limitations. That being said, the attorney general can realistically do like whatever they want, if they're really determined. A state AG has a lot of power, and it's reasonable to assume that, officially or otherwise, they probably have a lot of leeway when it comes to gathering information like that. Depending on how much pull they have with the adjacent state departments. Even Hassan has said if you're LGBT, maybe buy a gun. Even the liberal Hassanabi has said if you're LGBT, maybe buy a gun. I say that, keep your passport updated. Did he? We can assume. It's not good. Statement on the genocidal nature of the gender critical movement's ideology and practice. A ton of higher ups in the gender critical movement, like prominent people up to and including J.K. Rowling, have essentially just said they don't want trans people to exist. It is a fully a-fascist movement. It is a genocidal movement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I like how we enjoyed basically like a 2-year long period during which there was maybe some kind of social perception of there being like a socially liberal but concerned about women's sex-based rights movement. And we've now moved away from that, and now just like all TERFs are either explicit fascists or friends with all fascists. Like there's no ambiguity. Like literally every gender critical TERF, we're concerned about trans people group, are just completely and entirely in the fascist camp. No ambiguity whatsoever. J.K. Rowling is having a circle jerk sesh with a bunch of like British Nazis. I like the lack of ambiguity. They just have a few concerns. A final question, if you will. You like that? I like that.